So, your nonprofit is looking to fundraise in Massachusetts? That's great. But before you start, there are some pretty critical state-level rules you need to know. In this explainer, we're going to walk through all the essential requirements to make sure you stay compliant. This is part of our multi-state fundraising compliance series, which is really all about giving nonprofit leaders and their finance teams some practical advice on charitable solicitation. And this resource is provided by Ironwood Registrations. Okay, let's just dive right in with a super common question. A lot of organizations think that once they get that federal tax-exempt status from the IRS, they're good to go and can start fundraising anywhere. But is that actually true? Well, when it comes to Massachusetts, the answer is a definite no. That federal status is, of course, really important, but Massachusetts regulates fundraising at the state level. And what that means for you is, if you plan to ask for donations there, you absolutely have to get state approval before you even think about starting. So, here's how we're going to break it all down. We'll start with the basics of registration, then we'll cover the initial steps and what you need to do every year. After that, we'll look at some key financial thresholds, and finally, we'll talk about exemptions and how to stay compliant. All right, let's start with the fundamentals. What does the state actually require? In Massachusetts, all charitable fundraising is regulated by the Attorney General's office. Specifically, it's handled by their nonprofit organizations and public charities division. This is the office that issues what's called a certificate for solicitation, which is basically your official permission to raise funds in the state. Now, what does the state even mean by solicitation? Well, in Massachusetts, it's a really broad term. It covers basically any request for a contribution. We're talking about everything from the Donate Now button on your website to your email campaigns, social media posts, direct mail, you name it, even fundraising events. The main takeaway here is if you're asking Massachusetts residents for money, it counts as solicitation. So how do you get started? Let's walk through the initial registration process to get that all-important certificate for solicitation. The good news is the whole process is handled online. You'll file the application, and then you'll upload some key documents. Things like your articles of incorporation, your bylaws, and of course, your IRS determination letter. You'll also need to provide a current list of all your officers and directors, and finally, pay an initial fee to get the filing done. And that initial one-time registration fee, it's $100. Just keep in mind, this is totally separate from the annual fees you'll have to pay later on, which we're going to get to in just a minute. Okay, so you're registered. Great. But the work isn't quite over. Let's talk about the ongoing requirements for keeping your organization in good standing with the state. So every single year, registered charities have to file an annual report. In Massachusetts, it's known as Form PC. Along with that form, you'll need to submit your organization's IRS Form 990 and provide some updated financial and organizational info. That annual filing fee isn't a single flat rate either. It's actually calculated based on your organization's revenue. It can be as low as $35, or it could go all the way up to a maximum of $2,000.
Now, this is actually a pretty interesting detail about Massachusetts. Your annual renewal is due 4.5 months after your fiscal year ends. But, and this is the key part, the state provides an automatic 6-month extension as long as you're in good standing. You don't even have to file a separate request for it.
As your organization grows, so do the compliance requirements. So this next section is all about the extra financial reporting that gets triggered once you hit certain revenue levels.
This chart lays it out really clearly. If your organization's gross revenue is somewhere between $500,000 and $1 million, you have to submit reviewed financial statements. And if your revenue goes over $1 million, then you'll need to provide full audited financial statements. It's really all about increasing transparency for larger nonprofits. So, does every single nonprofit out there need to register? Not always. Let's take a look at some of the common exemptions and the best ways to stay compliant. Your organization is likely exempt if it raises $5,000 or less per year, and all of that fundraising is done by volunteers. You might also be exempt if you only get contributions from 10 or fewer people. Again, with only volunteers doing the asking. But on the flip side, as soon as you cross that $5,000 line, or if you use any paid staff or professional fundraisers, registration is almost always required. And here is a really crucial detail, especially for smaller nonprofits. Unlike in some other states, if your organization qualifies for an exemption in Massachusetts, you do not need to proactively file an application to claim it.
So, what are the keys to staying on the right side of the law year after year? Well, it really just comes down to a few good habits. Always track your reporting deadlines, keep really accurate financial records, monitor all your fundraising activities, and make sure your state filings are always current.
That's how you maintain your good standing.
At the end of the day, what's the goal of all these rules? It's pretty simple, really. Massachusetts laws are designed to do two main things: promote transparency in the nonprofit world and protect the donors who so generously support all of our missions.
Because Massachusetts requires you to get approval before you start fundraising and has this pretty structured annual reporting system, it's really important to review these requirements carefully. If your organization needs a hand managing these registrations, you can learn more at ironwoodregistrations.com.